Moldova, it's very small, but still there are several territories which have a very particular status. For example, Transnistria and Gagauzia. And I would say in general, our society and young people with whom we're mostly working, they are quite divided sometimes. And sometimes I feel like they exist in parallel realities. So sometimes speaking different languages, having different culture, having even like different friends on social networks and reading different news. They very rarely have the opportunity to do something in common. And so in ActivePeace, we provide this opportunity. We try to bring people together, young people from different regions, like very diverse. And together with them, we realize small projects. So they're basically creating and implementing small projects in diverse interregional teams. And by doing that, they learn, well, first of all, how to implement their own initiative, but more important, they learn the empathy, they learn the teamwork, they learn how to solve the conflicts, and they learn a lot about each other.
We have discovered that during our work with our local friends and partners in 17-18, and we decided to set up a civil society center in Slovyansk. We did that 1 year ago. And we support local initiatives, we support international cooperation, we support more transparency with our work as well, and we would like to invite more people interested in conflict-related work to work in this region. The city of Slovyansk is today 70 kilometers away from the line of contact. It is peaceful. Traces of the war are not visible in the city anymore. And there it is possible to rebuild trust and to overcome the legacies of this very disturbing phase of occupation that took place between April and July 2014. So if you're interested to learn more of our work, please contact us. Please visit the Civil Society Center as well. It is just 6-7 hours by train from Kiev, and we would be happy to help you to show really fascinating Ukrainian dialogue and peace-building initiatives in Slovyansk and in the region.
Here I would like to say that quite often in the South Caucasus, when conflicts are discussed, they are very often discussed from security and geopolitical point of view, which is of course important and crucial. However, other perspectives are also important, and therefore here within this framework of this project, we thought to look at conflict from gender-sensitive lens. Therefore, we have asked individual researchers within the framework of our project to contribute to this approach and analyze the effects of war on women, on IDP, internally displaced persons, and what are the women's narratives, what are the difficulties that they had to deal with, and so to say, this is the main focus of our work. Within this framework of this project. And finally, I would like to conclude my speech that working on conflict transformation in South Caucasus is quite difficult, and it has become more difficult in the recent years, taking into account a very tense geopolitical and regional context that we are working. I think this was very well, so to say, illustrated by the recent outbreak of the tension between Armenia and Azerbaijan. This also once again shows the quite difficult and tense environment that we are working on the conflict transformation.
And I think it was for us a very interesting thing, because we explore the beginning of the reconciliation between France and Germany, because we still have in mind that our both country, I'm from France and she was German, and we were both journalists in Berlin at this time, and we really realized that it's not common that our country were both in war and against another, and that that 75 years later that we are the best partner inside Europe, that we will see in the last days how important Germany and France are when it's about discussions for this for the European Union. And it was very, very moving for us to see that the generation of our grandfather had a complete different experience from the relationship between France and Germany. And we started with the story of her grandfather. It's been a multimedia project with several stories. We wanted to meet a lot of former war prisoners from Germany and France, but we started, as I said, with the story of grandfather. And the story of a grandfather is very interesting because it shows how it begins with the reconciliation. Grandfather was a war prisoner close from Lyon in France, and by the very beginning, he worked as a prisoner in several farms for people in the south of France, and he developed a friendship relationship with the people of the farms, and after he was freed from France, he had this very intense relationship with France, and he gave this friendship, so to say, to his children and to the children of his children, because that's the way he started really to build the relationship between Germany and France. There were a lot of war prisoners from Germany in France after Second World War. There's been like 700,000 to 800,000 war prisoners, and these persons were, of course, there were sometimes having bad experience. Sometimes it went bad. Sometimes there were humiliation. I mean, obviously there were enemies in France, but in a few months, because of the process of the reconstruction, these enemies slowly became like the people who helped reconstructing the country, and for a lot of French, it was the first time they see Germans. Before, they always see the soldier, they always see the people responsible of the occupation, but for the first time they have a name. For the first time they were working with another, and it was finally for the first time humans.
This question of how to build or how to rebuild the trust is very relevant for everyone of them. What would be your personal answer? What is the most important to do, or maybe what is important not to do, from the perspective of your context, to rebuild or to build the trust?
I think just because I talked about exchange between youth person, I think the communication is absolutely the key, and the direct communication. I mean, it's always very important for the Franco-German Youth Office to promote physical exchange. But now it's not so much possible, so that's why we are all online. But it's always a very, very special experience when you meet someone and when we talk with the person, when we can exchange views on history, on what happened in your countries in the past. And it's something that's it's very difficult to replace now with the live meetings. That's what we're doing because of the situation, but it's, for me, nothing can replace this youth meeting and physical meeting. I mean, it's very it's a key for us. And what we shouldn't do is to think that we can only with books or brochures or things that we put in the hands of the youth person, just think that they will do the the journey to the other countries by themselves. We should try to help them to finance the opportunity to go abroad, and it's very important that we still keep in mind that physical meetings are key for reconciliation, in my opinion.
Thank you, Alan. Team, Lilia, would you add to that?
I can say that the problem with the conflict in eastern Ukraine is the fact that the fighting is ongoing, and extremely important would be a ceasefire. There's a ceasefire announced on July 27th, and it's very important that that it will really be implemented, because that's a precondition for rebuilding trust. At the same time, civic initiatives can do, even in a stage of an open conflict, a lot in just being not indifferent, in being interested and taking a look what is really happening, and in increasing pressure in the political sphere, for instance. So I think it's very important that internationally there will be a high attention on what is happening in eastern Ukraine, because it's a conflict that is taking place in the center of Europe, basically. And I think it is important to be open about the political reality and the great responsibility the Russian Federation has in this conflict. So political attention for these conflicts, empathy with the people there, and strong partnerships, in this case with Ukrainian NGOs working at the spot and doing really great work, are key and can achieve a lot.
Yes, I would just briefly add that from my perspective, of course, the dialogue is key between the conflict sides, and especially since we talked a lot also about young people and their initiatives. I think here it is also important that young people are ready to hear also some very different perspectives that they are not used to. Yes, this is also important, that when you sit at the table with someone who is from the different, so to say, from the other side of the conflict, it is important to hear this sometimes, not so easy statements or arguments, but this easiness or this readiness, I would say, to accept other opinions and listen and dialogue. I would always stress the importance of it.
If it's possible to prevent, and what measures should be taken for conflict prevention? That's also the question for all of us.
Maybe I can add to that. Unfortunately, the COVID crisis is rather not having a positive influence on these regional conflicts and territorial conflicts in the post-Soviet space. So unfortunately, it is not, we cannot exclude that you have a re-escalation of certain conflicts. And that's why it is extremely important to be attentive, to pay attention to what is happening in the region, and to build up strong partnerships between countries who are affected by different conflicts at the moment. And we have to be very, very open-minded and pay a lot of attention to the conflicts that might get a lot of worse when we don't pay attention, if we don't cooperate closer, if we don't pay stronger relationships with local partners, and if we don't propose more positive solutions of political solutions and a more creative and sustainable future. It is better to think about how to solve ecological problems, about how to overcome the current economic crisis, than to get deeper into territorial conflict and into military confrontation.